All right, it's time to now get a little bit of work done on the Toyota. I've actually been driving this thing a little bit here and there. It's not really a daily driver kind of a vehicle, but I do like to crank it up and drive it, make sure everything stays good with it. But as it's November, getting close to winter time, it's time to get a few things done to winterize this thing. So I'll walk around and show you what we're doing. So if this is the first time you've seen this truck, this is my 86 Toyota pickup. This, of course, is a 4x4. I picked this thing up for pretty cheap and needed a little bit of work. I had a rusted out brake line. Just a tune-up that was needed. I did that on the last go-around. Now we're going through and kind of starting what I'm calling the winterizing process. Now I just recently had some exhaust work done. I had a rusted out muffler that we put a new Flowmaster on. Now I'm going to see if I can take care of an exhaust leak off the manifold. So this is the exhaust manifold gasket here. I'm hoping I'll have time to get this done today. It might not happen though. I've had issues with Toyotas in the past with having improper terminals that end up corroding really badly, and this truck is doing that. So I went ahead and got some really good zinc coated terminals. And then at the same time, the starter on this truck likes to skip gears every now and then. You can just tell it's grinding and it needs to be replaced. So we've got a new starter. And then whoever put the radio in this truck, I think it's got some janky wiring going on. But either way, it's got an old head unit, old CD player. So I just picked up this Bluetooth unit off of Amazon. So we'll be able to have Bluetooth in the truck. And there's really only 2 speakers in the truck. So I figured I'd get some decent, kickers or something like that. And I'm hoping these will fit up in the dashboard. Otherwise, we'll have to reuse the ones that are already there. So here we are in the cab of the truck. You can kind of see you got wiring going everywhere for the radio here. Now some of this I think is speaker wire that's run up into the dashboard here. So I'm definitely going to tidy all of that up and try to get all that stuff off the floor, especially if we get water and stuff in here. You don't want to have electrical wiring submerged in water, which could possibly be why this isn't working currently. So obviously this is going to get replaced and probably thrown in the trash. You can kind of see up in there, it's just kind of a mess of wires. So we'll get all that cleaned up. It looks like there are some speakers that somebody's put in here, but again, we'll see if we can get these new kickers to fit in there instead. Oh no, maybe those are the original ones. Look at that. Maybe just some cheap OEM knockoff ones. So we'll see if we can get that done. And then also while we're in here, I want to make sure the heat is working. So what I'm going to need to do is on the gauge here, the temperature gauge has never actually been working because I think it's disconnected. So we're going to trace down that wire. Most of the fan speeds don't work except for high here. So I'm going to at least get up underneath the dashboard and take off the part for that and make sure I can get that from the local parts store. And then generally what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the dashboard down when I'm doing all this radio stuff, and we'll take out the blower module here because you can normally hear all kinds of crud and leaves and God knows rat's nest stuff that's going to be in there. So we're going to clean all that out, make sure there's nothing blocking the fan blades. That'll give us access to that blower control module, and hopefully we can get all that cleared up. That way we can maybe get some hot air blown from the dashboard. All right, so here's the engine bay of the 22R, and you can see there's the new mechanical fuel pump that I put in. You can see here's the new Denso wires, Denso spark plugs, stuff like that we did about a month or so ago. Actually, it's probably a little bit longer than that. So here's the battery cables that I'm going to replace. These are actually not in bad shape. I do think that I replaced one of these already, but I'm not really happy with the way that this is all set up on here. You can just see it's just not the greatest wiring job ever. So we're going to clean all of that up. Put the new cables on. I got to disconnect that anyway to get to the starter, which is down below here. Then you can just kind of see down here in this little rat's nest, there's just disconnected cables going everywhere. Now a lot of these might not be needed because maybe there's things that have been removed off this car over time. But I think potentially that green connector back there, I think is going to be the coolant temp sensor if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to have to do some double checking on that, but I'm going to follow that wire down and see maybe why we don't have any gauge reading correctly on the dashboard. So we're just going to try to go through some of this stuff and try to pair it up and figure out like maybe I can just clean up and zip tie over to the side because we've just got wires running everywhere. So we'll just try to see if we can clean that up a little bit. Alrighty, so we've got the old starter out. I figured I'd start with more of the mechanical stuff before we go into the stereo stuff inside the car. So starter is out. I'll show you. It was basically a 14 millimeter on everything. So you do have the one negative, the ground here that you just unclip from here. And then when you reach underneath of the starter, you'll easily find the cable that goes to here for the main power supply. That was a 14 millimeter nut with a washer on it. And then it's basically sitting like this on the truck. So you had a 14 millimeter nut on the top here, and then you had a 14 millimeter bolt on the bottom. So I probably recommend undoing the bottom bolt first, and that way when you're doing the top nut, it can actually kind of hang there on that stud that comes out. And I'll show you here on the transmission. So let's get all up in here. So you can see where the starter was. We can get all the way up in here. So you can see the top hole, the top stud, and then the bottom, where the bottom one goes is down here. And then what you can actually see with mine is, it looks like that I do have some strip teeth here on the flywheel, so that's gonna be something I'm gonna have to watch for. The whole reason I was actually replacing the starter was because of sometimes the starter wouldn't engage right, or it would make like a grinding noise. And it looks like there might be a little bit of worn teeth on this starter here. But overall, the starter itself actually isn't in that bad of shape. But I am hoping that, of course, with the new starter, you know, it'll engage the flywheel a little bit more securely and won't have that grinding sound. All right, so now we're working on stereo stuff. And as you can see, this is the old head unit that was in this truck. I'm sure it's probably an okay unit, minus the fact that it's just old. You can just see how dirty it is. But this wiring harness was just about how it was when I pulled it out from the dashboard. There were some twist ties in there. There was some old school speaker wire run all over the place, and none of these things were connected really. So it's no wonder these weren't working. And then these are some Jensen speakers that I'm guessing somebody had put in at some point, because clearly these aren't the original Toyota ones. But these are getting replaced as well. So the head unit that's going in, or I guess I should say is in already, is this Jensen unit. This is just a Bluetooth and AM/FM radio, 200 watts. Had really good reviews on Amazon. Figured it'd be good enough for the truck. And then we also have the 4-inch kicker speakers that are going in. I feel like I've used these before in my Previa, and I feel like they do okay for a 4-inch speaker at least. It's hard to get any kind of bass out of something like that, especially when it's a shallow little speaker and there's really no box. But that's the combination that's going in, and we actually already have it installed now. So because the wiring was all hacked up, I had to basically go in and trace all the original wiring harness and get the power, the ground, and the antenna wire basically all wired up. And then you can see I haven't quite cleaned it up yet, but I decided to replace the nasty old original speaker wiring that was in here, which is probably still good to use really. But I just decided I'd go ahead and replace it with more traditional speaker wire. And I'll obviously get this all tucked up underneath the dashboard. You can see there's the 4-inch kicker there, and the same with over there. And we do have power to everything. Everything works great. So what I'm gonna do now, and I've already kind of started on it, is I'm gonna actually be removing the blower motor from down here. I've already removed one of the screws, this one right here, and I'm gonna actually go ahead and remove all the other 2 screws, drop that down, and I've got a really good feeling there's gonna be leaves and God knows what, probably like a rat's nest in there just from hearing the sounds of the blower. So we'll get that down and I'll give an update. All right, and here is the blower motor. So it's actually not near as bad as I thought it was going to be. This does not look like a rat's nest, which is actually kind of nice. It just looks like years and years and years of leaves getting sucked up through the vents and getting down into the system. And as we look up in here, I don't know if you can see anything in there, but it's actually decently clean. Looks like it's really just the stuff that was collected in here. So what we'll end up doing is we'll dump all this out, probably spray some disinfectant or something on there and slap it back in. All right, so everything is back together. Dash is put back up, the wires are tucked. I actually went ahead and fixed a couple things as well. Like there was just a blinker bulb that needed to be replaced, and just a couple of things that need to be just kind of cleaned up. But that's gonna be it for today. I'm hoping that maybe in the next week or so I'll do the exhaust manifold gasket there, and that way we'll have all the exhaust leaks fixed. So it's just a little bit of an update with the Toyota pickup. So as always, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.